Now then, you get to this point here. You think that you're done. You got a couple more steps to take. Over here on the right, the rest of this interface over here. Global refinements. We're going to skip over some of these options because arguably they're not going to do anything significant to this picture, but make it look worse. And they're just not a good setting to use. Like this one here called edge detection. What it's for, it's supposed to let the computer automatically pick out what the edges are supposed to be. So the higher you go, you'll see it kind of start modifying your selection. See what it's doing to the microphone in her hair? Why would I do that? And so it's like it's not doing a good job. Maybe by a little bit, it can help refine the edge, but not really. That automated one just doesn't really work well for me. So instead, you go to global refinements, which is what edge detection is doing, but you're separating out each individual setting. So that way you can do your own little custom thing. So here's how this works. Uh, Smooth, feather, contrast, and shift edge. I'm gonna start with smooth here. When you're painting, sometimes you're gonna paint the edges and and paint around, and it's gonna be a little rougher than you want it to be for your selection. So smooth will smooth the selection out. Now, if you go too high, again, you may or may not notice, but things will get so smooth to the point where you lose details, especially like in the hair. So you don't have to go with a real high number with any of these particular four settings. A little bit will go a long way. Feather is softening the harder edges of the selection. So the higher you go, the softer the edge selection is. So then you get this ghost kind of thing going because really nothing is being selected, with detail. So again, little bit goes a long way. A little bit of a feather could work, but not a whole lot. Contrast. This is the one you'll probably play with the most, starting off here, because contrast is increasing the differences from of the edges of the color where the selection is a little more of a hard edge, as well as up there in the hair where you got the background with her hair color. It's kind of increasing that contrast, so that way you get a better, little more refinement going on with the selection. But again, be careful because you don't want to go too high with the contrast because things could get kind of distorted and you won't even notice until it's almost too late. Now, the last one is the shifting of the edge. Positive number will push the edge of your selection outward. Negative number is going to pull it inward to, so, look at her hair. That looks terrible. She got a bad haircut. So it depends on where you want to go with this. Now, sometimes you can use these in combination with each other. For instance, I can do a feather by a couple of pixels, like maybe one or less than 1 pixel, probably no more than two. And then I can shift the edge in, and I wish this would go by percentage instead of by pixel. Well, go by pixel instead of percentage, because negative 2, 3%, what is that? I don't know. But what this does is that it feathers the edge and softens the edge up, but it doesn't give me that little halo of extra color going around my subject because I shifted the edges in, so the softening is right at the edge of my subject. Small percentage, small values can tend to work. The contrast and the smooth works well together. I could increase the smooth number and then increase the contrast number, and that'll help around hair, around right at the edges of like the skin or like on the texture of things like the microphone. It'll kind of smooth that out, but also with the contrast being high, things like the details in a microphone will stand out a little bit better, right on the edges. It has nothing to do with the interior part of the selection. It's just around the edges. Is there a combination of all four that you use by numbers? No, don't ever let anybody tell you use these numbers all the time. You'll always get the result. That does not work for any filter that you apply, any effect you apply, anything like these type of settings that you apply. There's no way to say, okay, if you use these numbers all the time, you'll always get this result out of the picture. That's not the case because every picture is different. The subject is different, so the numbers will be different that you set. So usually what I'm doing, I'm setting the numbers, and once I set these numbers to something that I feel that I'm comfortable with, you looking at the whole entire picture, then I can zoom in closer and go around the picture and see if there's any, you know, aberrations or anything, especially like the hair or anything like that that doesn't quite look right, once I zoomed in on it. just to make sure that it's what I need it to be. Down in the lower left-hand corner is where your zoom percentage actually resides. And it used to be a drop-down button. I think this little thing is in the way. I got a little icon that's in my way that I can't get to that. Hold on. There. Okay. And oh, there's no drop-down arrow anymore. There used to be a drop-down arrow right here at the 200% where I can like pick my my zoom percentage there. And the drop down arrow is gone. So if I type in 100 and then hit enter, it goes at 100%. This is the 100% view that I'm panning around now. So if it looks good at this 100%, looks good at that 200%, then everything is pretty much good. And I can tell if I missed something. And if I did, fix it. By painting it back in, I don't have to reset these numbers. I can just go to my paintbrush tool and paint the correction in or what have you until I get right. And then once I get right, I'm ready to move to the next step. Next step, the last one here. You have decontaminate colors. I suggest you don't use it unless you just have to use it. Usually you have to use it because of hair or fuzzy areas or things like that. Look at her hair right now. If I turn this decontaminate color off, look at the details there in the hair. If I turn it on at the number that it's at 100%, see how it flattens out the color right there, the tips and the edges of the hair, flattens out all the detail there. Decontaminate colors takes the color information of those pixels and starts spreading them out further than towards the other pixels, and so you get this kind of smearing effect that, again, when you're not looking at the picture at 100%, sometimes it's not noticeable because you're zoomed out so far. If I turn the amount down so it's not being applied as much, like I was saying with the other things, it may not look as bad, and it may work for you with this decontaminate colors, especially if you're trying to do this masking thing that we're going to talk about in a second. Because the decontaminate colors will push those colors out to the edge and try to give you a little bit more refined edges there. Sometimes the little wispy ends of the hair will you'll be able to see them a little bit better because it's making that color a little more full. But you do want to do this in small doses and small amounts. You don't want to go too high with the decontaminate color. There is another problem with decontaminate color that I don't like. That the only way to really show it to you is to complete this out and show you where the problem comes about. And in order to do that, where you really see it, I want to turn this all the way up. Something I normally would not do, but I just want to show you what'll happen if you use this decontaminate colors, because there's a part with this decontaminate that you cannot, like, once you hit OK, you can't fix it. You can't correct it like you can with some of the other things. And that becomes a problem because it's like you got to start all over again. Okay. Now, the output 2. With this decontaminate colors on, when you hit this drop down for output 2, part of that, what I've talked about where you can't fix it, selection and layer mask are grayed out. Why they're grayed out is because the decontaminate colors is on and it's doing a distortion to the picture that you're not going to be able to correct from. So that's why I usually turn it off personally, because I may want to use one of those choices. Now, the other choices that you have, new layer will take this selection, cut away whatever was in the background that's not selected, and make a whole brand new layer of this picture. Sometimes that's a good thing because that's all you wanted to do. But if you made a mistake in the selection, didn't quite get it all, cut off something or added something that you didn't want to add or take away, new layer, you got to start all over. Basically, because that layer is ruined, you'd have to throw that layer away and start all over again. Whereas new layer with a layer mask gives you a new thing. So it creates a new layer, but then it creates a mask. The mask is this overlay. So this kind of hot pink overlay that I got here, that becomes my mask. It hides the background. It hides the stuff that I don't want to see on the picture. So I'm duplicating the entire picture as a new layer, and then I'm creating a layer mask that hides That's the best choice out of all the ones that are here because I have the ability to come back and fix a problem if I saw a problem. That's usually my go-to choice. New layer with a layer mask. New document with a layer mask. That makes a whole brand new file. So you remember the last class, well, a minute ago when I did the save selection a little bit ago, and I did the file save as. So this would make a whole brand new file without doing the save part yet. And then you could have it just make a whole new document without the background there, and you would just have the cutout. Again, you make a mistake, you got to start all over. Or you can make a new document that at least has a layer mask on it, so that way you don't have to start all over. You can kind of correct your mistakes. The best choice, in my opinion, new layer with the layer mask. So that's the one I'm going to use. The other options could have some usefulness, but the layer masking option is the best out of all of them. Now, again, this decontaminate colors, I usually do not have this on at this particular stage because I don't like what it does to the hair, especially. And I'm going to show you what it's actually doing in the background behind the layer mask that you'll see something that is just not desirable. So I'm gonna hit OK to get out of this. And that's gonna give me, if I got my layers palette open, you'll see I got a new layer. So I made a copy of this background original layer and created the layer mask. So this copy has the original picture copied over, and then has another thumbnail that is the layer mask. This is black and white thumbnail where the parts that are black is what's masked away. The parts that are white is what is being revealed. Holding down my Alt key or my Option key and clicking on the layer mask will toggle on and off the mask so that way you can see it and see all its detail. And this is the decontaminate colors. You see how it kind of blurs up everything here around the edges there? It's not really distinct little strands of hair. That's the part that I don't really enjoy and I could, need to get rid of and fix. The rest of the picture is not visible because that layer is, transparent, except for where she is. It isn't deleted, it's just masked. So black hides, white reveals. Remember that when it comes to layer masking and some of the other types of masking and things that are going on that we'll be showing you. What is black is the hidden area, it's the masked area. What is white is the revealed area. And then everything in between is just like in between shades of gray will be partially selected. So like up in the hair and things like that. If I need to go back to that selected mask, double clicking onto the thumbnail of the layer mask is going to jump you right back into editing the mask. So that way you can go back and you can re-edit. I mentioned about decontaminate colors being a problem. If you notice, decontaminate colors is now turned off. I can turn it back on and add more to it, but it's not letting me edit what I already had. It's just adding on to the decontaminate again. So that's a problem. Everything else I can change. I can repaint because the tools are here. I can change these different slider options because I can change that. Oh, I forgot to tell you to do one thing, which was not here anymore. Oh, it's not here now. There was an option that I forgot to check on, which was remember the settings for the global refinements. There was a checkbox that I was supposed to check on. So that way the global refinements would have kept their numbers. So that way I can go and reapply those numbers. So everything just reset here. So I can't get back to it. And then the final thing is that like if I do some type of changes, I want to make sure the output is set to output to the layer mask. So that way I'm updating the current layer mask that I have and not making a whole new one. Yeah, so if you need to edit the mask, edit your selection to make this a little bit more better, just double click onto the layer mask. It opens up the dialog box again for you to make your changes. When you finish making your changes, you just hit OK. But, well, you finish making your changes. You go to the output 2 and make sure it's outputting to the layer mask. Then you hit OK. I want to make sure I tell it to you in the right order. So that way it re-updates the layer mask to give you the new output choices. Now, let me show you what decontaminate colors actually will do to things like the hair and the other pixels that are being masked. If I hold down my shift key on my keyboard, I can click onto the layer mask thumbnail and temporarily disable the layer mask. And when I do that, see what happens? All that color that was her hair from that decontaminate colors got pushed all the way out, and it does this distortion. It is doing it around the whole entire picture, but around the hair is where you see the majority of the damage. I can't recover this. This is why making the new layer with the layer mask is important, because if I do something like this, basically I have to start all over again. I can just take this whole entire layer and throw the whole thing away and just start the process again of selecting, go to select subject, do the selected mask, so I can go select subject again, or better yet, I can go back to my select menu and go to load selection and load on that Badu channel. So I got my selection back. I can go to the selected mask. I can just click on the button here, click on that refine hair, because that was the biggest thing to change. I can do all my other painted in refinements and such, to make this better. I can go and change these different settings on the smooth and the contrast and the feather and, and the shift edge and all that sort of stuff. Not touching decontaminate colors ever again. Change this output to new layer with a layer mask. Also, before I get out of here, where is it? Oh, remember settings right up here at the top. That little option right there. If I keep this checked on, remember settings, these settings here with the global refinements and such, it will be remembered. So that way I can come back and change that around. I forgot to do that last time when I hit OK. So I do all of these changes, new layer with a layer mask, yes, and hit OK. And it does the same thing. It makes the new layer with the layer mask. And at any point in time, I can go in and double click on that layer mask thumbnail. I can go in and make any fixes or changes. I can refine the hair some more as I need to. I can fix the little eye being, taken out, fix the microphone stand and all that sort of thing. When I come back over here on the right, because I turned on that remember settings, see the settings of the smooth and the contrast and the feather and all that I did, is it still in play? So I can make those types of adjustments too. And then the output too. I just want to make sure the output is outputting to the layer mask, not to a new layer with a layer mask. I already got one. I don't need another one. I just need an output to the layer mask. Hit OK. There I go. I have my new layer with the layer mask ready for me to do whatever it is that I need to do. I hope all that makes sense to you. So making a selection, it starts with these different selection tools. And once you make these do with these selection tools, whatever you do with that, then you go into the selected mask. If you need to save the selection prior to, you could do that. Under that selected mask feature, you can make changes and refinements to the mask or to your selection, get it done, turn it into a layer mask and a new layer once you hit OK to get out of there, and you're ready to move on to whatever your next thing is. And the next thing goes into what our next class is going to be about, working with the layers palette. Making a new layer, transferring pictures into to make a compilation of pictures, a composition of pictures, layer effects and text, all those type of things that starts to create different things. I have these different picture files, all right, that you can kind of play with making your selections, seeing what you can do with selecting this young lady. What process that would be a good challenge for you to do, and let's see what that looks like. You got the dog, this beach. If I wanted to select the palm trees here away from the rest of this picture, how could I go about doing that? Is there an easy way to do it? Going through the 06 start, practice selecting Buddha here, and then turn those other layers on and see if you could select those things. Challenge yourself to do those particular things. It will help. I think that's it. Yep. So the check-in part is going to be a discussion. Just make sure after you watch these videos and such, and you get cool with that, go into the discussion next before you go into the assessment. And thank you all for being here. And I will see and talk to y'all on the next week. If anybody has issue, concern, something you need to discuss or talk about to me with, again, my office hours are open. All you have to do is either book a time with me. Just go scroll up to the top on the under the instructor information, and you'll see the link for um, getting in touch with me and booking an online time or in person in the office. Fridays, I'm emphasizing this again, every Friday, we have our open lab days from 9 o'clock to 2. Uh, Come on out and start work, come out there and work. If you have your Creative Cloud account, all you need is that username and password. You can come and log in. Just make sure you bring a flash drive with you. So that way, any work that you do, you save it on that flash drive. Do not save it on the computers because they will not be there the next time you come back. So, yeah, thanks very much and have a great day. And we will talk to you later.